Don't touch that mouse. And don't sign up for any of these groups till you hear what I have to tell you about them. You may not even want to join any of them once you hear what I have to say about them. You know, I always thought these groups were going to be a waste of time for people because everybody writes their cures and whatever else they want to say into the Cure Drive. That's a group too, you know, everybody's in that group. But then I realized people in these groups were phoning each other, you know, and that's what the groups are good for. They're good for finding a buddy or creating a buddies group. And see, really, what you want a buddies group. You want to have, let's say, a dozen people that meet on Thursday night. And then if everybody doesn't show up, you've got some people to meet with. And you also want one-on-one or one with two, where three of you talk and you work together. And if you have not even succeeded or have not started with this, you will if you have a group. You know, there's a really that meets in person over the telephone. Most people can't actually meet face-to-face because you're in Milwaukee and the woman that you're meeting with is in Israel. You know? Speaking of which, that's actually like the woman who moderates the MS Cure group. She's in Israel, and she got a negative medical test on MS recently. I say recently, it was probably at this point like 9 months ago I got that email from her, or the Cure Drive, I guess, got it, like, whatever, we got it, that she got a negative medical test. So, that's what it looks like. You know, it usually looks like telephone stuff, you know, doing stuff on the telephone, and you can get a conference bridge for free. You know, what you do is you Google telephone conference bridge, and you'll get these, you know, these companies that offer free conference bridges. Some of them go up to 100 people. You don't have to pay anything for them. Obviously, you have to pay for your phone calls, right? But they don't give you your phone calls for free, okay? But that'd be nice. We'd all use them then, you know? And I have a group. I have a little group, and we have we meet on the phone, and we make our appointments with our Cure group. You know, we write in and say when we want to meet. So, and sometimes people do meet in person. You know, like there were these two women named Beverly, they're Beverly Howard and Beverly Garland. And they live about an hour and a half apart. So what they do is they make this deal where they each drive 45 minutes, and they meet like in a, you know, wildlife area like the one I'm sitting in right here, which actually happens to be a block from my house. But anyway, they meet, and you know, they take they both have cell phones, so they coordinate. You know, like I'm over here at the entrance now, and the other will say, okay, I'm probably at 5 minutes, and then they meet, and they take a good long 2-hour walk, and they do a lot of learning. Largely what people in groups do with each other is they make the connection. You know, it's the connection that cures. When people get together and are curing, they tend to cure. Like one person by themselves trying to do this alone on a computer could very, very easily not do very well with it. So groups work, you know. One thing I want to suggest, there's a nice little cure show with a group that met in a church in the Midwest somewhere. I don't know what kind of church it was or too much about it, but I was on their call with them. I just don't remember too many of the particulars, but what I do remember is they all did great. You know, there was about 8 of them, you know, and they were all on the call together. They asked me to join them, which I did because I said, man, I got to record this, you know. This sounds like you guys are really helping each other, because it was their first day. They had just learned this, and they were like crackerjack, except this one guy who called the meeting who was having a lot of trouble getting a signal, and they all got together and they showed him, you know, how to get a signal. they helped him. What they were really doing was pointing out that he already was getting signals. He just couldn't feel them or recognize them. It's like you could see him getting signals. At least that's what they said. I wasn't obviously physically present with them, but there were like around 4 or 5 of them were actually sitting. They got a little room from the church to meet in, and they plugged their phone in there, or they used, I guess they probably used their speakerphone and their cell phone or something. I don't know, but they sounded good. It's a good little Cure Show you can hear it's right at the top of the Cure Show page with the doctors and notables. So it's in that area I put it. So I wanted it to stand out, so I put it there. So this is how you do buddying. Buddying is generally done by talking to people, and the learning curve just skyrockets. It's wonderful. As far as being in an email group, forget it. Nobody ever writes to these email groups. There's no email in the groups. I mean, you look at these groups, like if you click on just a couple of them and you look at them, you'll see the last email was sent to the group 2 years ago. And one reason is that, see, people's email addresses are actually visible in the group. So you can email somebody directly, and you can just say, hey, you want to meet with me on the phone? Here's my number, Ooh. And, that's how you get your, that's how you get your buddies. So a lot of times you do it by emailing, because if you email into the group, nobody may respond to you, but if you write to somebody, they might. Of course, they might have joined 3 years ago and changed their email address, so they'll never see your email anyway. So you'll never get an answer. You'll wonder why, There's a lot of people that are in these groups that don't know they're in them. Whereas, of course, the Cure Drive is the place where the action is. That's the place where, that's where all the members are in that, and they, when they have something to say, they, by email. There's a lot of things that are appropriate to say by email, like you got a negative medical test, That's something everybody would want to know, or, sometimes just something you discovered about healing yourself that, you'd want to know. And it's very easy to, get the word out about what you've been doing to the people you know by writing to everybody all at once. The Cure Drive makes it easy. It makes it easy to do that. That's why we have a Cure Drive. And okay, so anyway, that's where you get your lessons. That's where Aunt Keely sends her lessons from. So you get your daily lessons from there. And also the moderators of the Cure Drive are your mentors and coaches. And they're good. They were really helpful. A lot of times all they tell people to do is just do lesson 1, because they can see the person hasn't done lesson 1 yet. Don't write in if you haven't done lesson 1. We don't want to hear it, okay? Really, we don't want to write back to you, even though all we're doing is copying and dropping the, do lesson 1, But that's on the home page. It's the movie that starts playing automatically when you're on the home page. Okay, one other thing I should tell you, if you do have a group, is just have a regular time and day, and you meet every week without fail at that regular time, or 3. If you have a disease that requires intense attention, you probably need to meet 5 days a week. Or 7 days a week, or whatever. This is what you probably need. And as people cure it, they should definitely put something back by showing up a couple of times a week. But obviously, they don't have to meet 7 times a week anymore. But when you're new, if you have something that you're desperate to cure, you need to do it with people every day for maybe weeks or sometimes months. And if you've got cancer, you need to have everybody who cares about you curing it come to where you are and live in hotels or in your living room and meet every morning and exercise together and have breakfast together, and then start doing lessons in this web college, all curing things together, even though they don't have cancer. But if they're not curing things, they're not going to help you cure your cancer. So this is how it's done. When you have something serious, you just meet and meet and meet and meet and meet and meet and keep meeting till you cure it.